The presenting sponsor of Public Power Underground is PlugPass. PlugPass is an innovative solution for electric vehicle public charging in rural communities. By using charging speed fees to send price signals to electric vehicle motorists, the PlugPass program saves both commuters and the utility money. We spent a lot of time thinking about public charging in rural communities, so you don't have to. Stop by our GitHub page to learn more. PlugPass, it's open source. PlugPass, it's just an outlet.
All right, welcome to Public Power Underground, a Northwest Public Power YouTube series that began as awkward forced fun time for the power department 35 weeks ago when we altered our work arrangements at the start of an ongoing pandemic, and it has evolved into a coping mechanism to stay connected and informed about what's happening in the industry. It's public power news, so it counts as work to watch or listen. Trust us, it's fine. We're all coping. On today's episode, we're going to check in on Northwest indicators with Arin, run through the news on a truncated public power desktop, enjoy a guest stump speech on the Snake River dams, and subject our guests to very personal questions with a new segment we're calling Slumming with the Underground. I'm your host, Brian Fawcett. Today, we're joined by special guest star, the Executive Director of Northwest River Partners, and an avid biker, Kurt Miller. Welcome to Public Power Underground, Kurt.
I feel very welcome. I'm excited about the two personal questions, and it's an honor to be here with you today, Brian.
Thanks, Kurt.
I just stole and said you were an avid biker based on, I think, your bio on the Northwest River Partners page. Is that true, or did you just make it up to
I
make
feel
your
like telling
better?
people you're a biker makes you more acceptable.
Are you based in Portland, Kurt?
That's good.
Vancouver, Washington.
So I assume it's a unicycle, right?
Yeah, I have not figured out how to juggle the chainsaws yet, but yes, unicycle is my preference.
Nice, good for you.
All right, we are also joined by the star of Arin Reports and co-star of Public Power Underground, financial analyst, Arin Guillory. Good afternoon, Arin.
Afternoon, Brian. Always a good day on the pod.
Oh my gosh, is she wearing a Patagonia sweatshirt?
Yeah. Paul, cut this out later.
That's like really insulting.
If you think that's insulting, wait till the end of this episode.
Yeah, it's only going to get better from here.
There's more to come.
We're also joined by co-star of Public Power Underground, former editor-in-chief of the Columbian, and current power analyst, Ian Bledsoe. Thanks for being here, Ian.
Thanks for having me. And that's the Columbian, Rainier High School's only source for news.
Lastly, Paul is back this week from vacation. Welcome back, Paul.
Thanks, Brian. I think I should caveat vacation. Anytime you're going somewhere with 3 children is not really a vacation that's restful. It's just making memories. So we made memories last week.
Well, that's better than nothing.
Yep.
All right, we're starting this week checking in on the power market indicators in the Northwest with our first segment, Arin Reports.
Calling all optimal.
Quasi, Pacer, Johnson, Dishy,
Inkling.
Wait, turn up.
Quasi, activate
Arin,
the report.
Arin,
All right, Fawcett, well, let's do it. April-September flows at the Dows are expected to be 94,551 compared to 92,704.30 average, putting the anomaly at 102, a shift up 821 from last week. Midday outflows at the Dows were 117.5, down 157.1 a week prior, a full dip 39.6. Soybeans once again clenched to just limited gains on the day. Again, can they do it without the wheat and the corn? Headed north to Grand Coulee Dam, midday elevation dropped a bit, 1282.5, a 1-7 drop from midday last Thursday. Outflow hit 122.5 last week midday and held to 122.9 at 4 from week prior. Pork cutout value is posted at 77.68, down 92, and lean hog index is 69.32, down 41, and a mixed cattle index on the board. Mid-sea power at night settled around 22.61. Daylight brought 25.70, high 31.75, low 20. August power at mid-C down again slightly at 59 compared to a 60.05 from the last period reported on Public Power Underground. In bond markets, one Washington utility issued about 35.4, that's 35.4, Brian, million with yields around 165 bips. CPC maintains the ONI of negative 0.9 for August, September, October, with most recent SST departures at negative 1. For Nino, 3.4 index and currently predicts a 95% chance La Nina will continue through winter 20 and 21. Spending a beat at Bonneville's Balancing Area Authority. Midday load held steady at about 6,800 from last week. Midday hydrogen in the area hit 92 grand, up a skosh from 91 grand a week ago. And midday wind gen was up 1 grand from last week from 367. Fish, fish, fish. Yesterday, 87 steelhead passed through the lower Granite Dam, down from 179 last Thursday. Temp in the region just about split the difference at 50-25, with 40s reported week prior and 60s a week before that. Saturday may bring a 52-degree high with fog and clouds. Klatskanai about the same, less the fog in Vancouver. December overnight corn was down 4 3/4 cents at 4.21, and overnight January beans were down 9 cents at 11.66 3/4.
And that's the reason that Arin is the star of this podcast. Thank you for the report, and a special thank you for adding the fish counts.
Absolutely. It was a huge gap. It was greatly missing. Executive Director of Northwest River Partners, Kurt Miller, wrote an opinion article in the Wenatchee World last week where he focused on the tagline, "Our salmon need the dams to survive." In the article, he ascribes the headline to a friend after a canvassing of possible friends of Kurt. The reference was disputed. An anonymous source tells Public Power Underground that the actual hot take was, "You can't save the fish without the dams." Who can say which sentence structure is better? We'll leave that up to the experts. You can read more about Kurt's opinion by reading his article titled "Salmon May Need Dams to Survive" in the Wenatchee World.
I just brief comment on that. That idea came from the Underground's own Paul Dockery. The question where I was really afraid is that he would dispute the fact of whether I called me calling him a friend. So anyway, I appreciate the letting that pass, and just going for a question on the title, Paul. Thank you.
In the world of sports, the greatly delayed, modestly anticipated 2020 NBA draft took place last night and began without much controversy or drama. With the first pick of the draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves selected Anthony Edwards, a 6'3" shooting guard from Georgia. The projected top prospect in the draft class, LaMelo Ball, fell to the Charlotte Hornets and Michael Jordan at number 3 after the Golden State Warriors drafted 7'1" center from Memphis, James Wiseman. A predictable beginning of the draft didn't keep Woj from dropping bombs all day. Unfortunately, the news wasn't all jovial fun. News surfaced of a potential season-ending injury for Golden State Warriors star Klay Thompson. This was confirmed this morning, actually, who may have suffered a second consecutive season-ending injury. For more on the NBA draft, check out whatever sports page you usually follow. They probably have the entire front page dedicated to it. Paul and I use the Ringer.
Positive news on vaccines has boosted markets, but the International Energy Agency cautioned against near-term optimism for global oil markets. Energy has always been a lagging indicator and will be no different in the recovery from a pandemic. Expect continued downward pressure on oil demand through the first half of 2021. The pandemic has been especially hard on oil refineries. According to IEA's report, the economic downturn caused by the pandemic has permanently removed 1.7 million barrels a day of refining capacity from the market, while a further 20 million barrels of capacity a day has been idled. Read the Wall Street Journal's coverage in their article titled "Oil Demand Recovery Unlikely for Months Despite Vaccine Hopes."
Now we take you to a guest view from the Register Guard titled "A Serious Gap in Knowledge," written by Kurt Miller, a prolific writer of op-eds in the Northwest, and also the executive director of Northwest River Partners. In the article, he analogizes the tragic death of vulnerable seniors at the start of the pandemic to limited information about how fish are impacted by dams. Bold narrative tool. Some would say that Kurt Miller is the boldest executive director of Northwest River Partners. But he isn't wrong that incomplete information incorporated into complex models can lead to bad conclusions.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do think that I am the boldest current director of Northwest River Partners. And there's just 2 people who work in the office. So It's just me and one other guy. So there's not a lot of competition there. Thank you.
I would just add that as a avid fisherman that also works in the public power industry and supports hydro, this view has been something that I have advocated for a while, and I very much appreciate it. Ocean conditions are really what are driving our issues with salmon and steelhead.
Yeah, don't get me started. I seriously mean that. And you'll hear a little bit more about this in the stump speech, but oh my gosh, we have a really serious issue, and it goes far beyond, just our region.
Mm-hmm.
Would you go so far as to say that really the fish need the dams to survive?
I actually think that's true. I think that when we say the dams, dams are like people, they have different personalities, right? But I think that when we talk about the dams, we're really talking about productive hydroelectric dams. And absolutely, given what we're learning about the effect of a warming ocean on salmon prey and the shift in salmon predation, and then, how that affects salmon survival at sea, there's no question in my mind that whoever said that salmon need the dams to survive was really smart.
BPA posted its annual report and hosted a quarterly business review to review its most recent financial results. Over 130 participants logged into the webinar-only presentation where BPA showed better than rate case financial results for fiscal year 2020, significantly better than rate case. Most notably, the above rate case results will trigger BPA's revenue distribution clause of roughly $80 million for its transmission business line. How those released reserves are used is up to the administrator's discretion. The administrator proposes using the entire amount toward debt reduction, which I agree with. For more, visit BPA's QBR page where you can watch recordings of the webinars, or just give me, Arin Guillory, a call.
This next story is the Energy Information Administration reported that CO2 emissions from the energy sector fell by 2.8% between 2018 and 2019, which is that's not such a big deal since they rose by a similar amount the previous year. And in any event, it's nowhere near enough to solve the ocean problem that we alluded to earlier.
Hey, Ian, why does it take almost like a year to figure out what happened with carbon? It seems like a really long lag.
First, a bureaucratic slowdown at the Air Resources Board, and then a bureaucratic slowdown at the EIA, and probably even more, steps of bureaucratic slowdown in between.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there something they don't want us to know?
I think it's more about validation and truing up than anything.
Oh, okay.
That's normally I'm as cynical as you, Kurt, but in this case I would give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so not a government conspiracy. Thank you.
At the direction of its executive committee, PPC staff published a white paper on the value of the lower Snake River dams. The report restates findings of the recently concluded Columbia River System Operation Environmental Impact Statement and other studies performed to review their value. That the lower Snake River dams are a crucial component of BPA's low-cost carbon-free power supply, and that their removal would result in massive increases to power supply costs, massive increases in carbon emissions, impacts on other critical areas of the regional economy, and an increased risk of blackouts for the region. You can find the report on PPC's website for more.
One thing I would love to see, Arin, is maybe a future deep dive expose into some of the claims by DamSense and its followers that the lower Snake River dams are actually losing money. I just can't believe that according to generally accepted accounting principles that could be the case. We've always heard different things from BPA, much like those dams actually represent some of the most cost-efficient dams on its system. And would really love to see the underground take that on in kind of a deep dive look to see what the truth is there.
Love that. Yeah, thank you. That's very thought-provoking.
BPA notifies its customers on Tuesday of opposition to its proposed transmission settlement. As a result, BPA will proceed with its initial proposal for transmission losses that'll add $8.2 million in charges to customers that physically return their losses to BPA. Most notably, 10 point-to-point customers jointly filed comments opposing the inclusion of capacity charges and loss returns. For more information on the reasons for oppositions, all the comments are public and available on BPA's website.
All right, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 77, in conjunction with Energy Northwest and Patelco, successfully developed Washington State's first utility-scale solar plus battery project near Richland, Washington. Energy Northwest will own and operate the 1 megawatt, 4 megawatt hour flow battery portion of the solar plus battery project. The project was partially funded through a $3 million grant from Washington's Clean Energy Fund. Check out APPA's Public Power Daily newsletter for more.
Have you guys spent some time with the APPA Public Power newsletter? It's really good stuff.
Yeah, I will admit it's not generally my go-to if I'm sifting through and prioritizing, but I would absolutely agree. Yeah, it's definitely something that I wish I devoted more time to.
I was kind of hoping for Ian's take on that, him being a former publisher of the, or editor of the Columbian.
Oh, the longer, more in-depth articles I do spend time reading, but some of the color pieces about so-and-so retiring after 20 years or somebody got the communication award, I definitely skip those. I also, of course, check all of the job listings in the back.
Right. Smart. You have to know your worth.
An agreement was announced Tuesday between the governors of Oregon and Washington, along with tribal leaders in a subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway, that paves the way for the demolition of 4 hydroelectric dams on the lower Klamath River. If completed, it would be the largest dam demolition in U.S. history. The project, on California's second largest river, would be at the vanguard of a trend toward dam demolitions in the U.S. For more on the agreement, you can find copies of the Memorandum of Understanding on the governor's website, or find news articles covering the topic all over, including an AP story titled "Historic Deal Revives Plan for Largest U.S. Dam Demolition."
Yeah, I'd love to comment on that just really briefly. There's one thing that's really interesting in that is that the way this agreement has continued to move forward is for Oregon and California, state governments have actually agreed to take on the financial risk involved in the deal to have those dams removed. And I think that it's an extraordinary step at a time when state budgets are reeling from COVID-related losses in revenue. So it gives you an idea of how important this measure is to the governors of Oregon and California. One thing I would say about those Klamath Falls dams is, my organization does not, we don't oppose the removal of what we believe are non-productive dams, and those dams on the Klamath Falls River, they don't provide very much energy at all. They have no fish passage, so they literally do block off a massive portion of that river. And from our perspective, if it helps enrich that natural environment and society's not benefiting from the production of a good amount of clean renewable energy, then it seems like they're headed in the right direction. The thing we want to make sure is people understand the difference between the dams that they hear about. Is like, as I mentioned before, dams are like people. They have all sorts of different qualities and characteristics, and we need to look on this stuff as kind of a case by case basis.
I was wondering, there is like this nuanced take of a productive dam, which some would say you need those productive dams to combat climate change to save the fish, and the kind of nuanced take between what the benefits maybe of removing non-productive dams versus the harm it could cause if you were to remove some productive dams that'll actually help us combat climate change. Do you think people understand that and can
we're trying to help people understand that. One of the problems when I came into Northwest River Partners, and we advocate for hydroelectricity, we're really proud of that, and we think that hydropower is a huge part, and especially in the Northwest, of our ability to, as a region, fight climate change. But one of the things that you kind of start to realize is that people want simple answers to complex questions, and we get why. I mean, everyone has a really busy life, and certainly given all that's happened here in this, around the world in the last year with COVID, and then here recently in the Northwest, especially with just terrible wildfires and things, we don't always have the chance to we don't have the time for nuance, right? But the truth is, if we're going to be helpful and not harmful, that we have to look at these things with the intricacy that they deserve. And so, I think that one of the things that we're going to be really working hard on this next year as an organization is to educate people on first of all, how important hydroelectricity is in the climate change fight, and how important that fight is if we're going to recover salmon. So that is going to be kind of number one for us. But then second is for people to understand that there are all sorts of different kinds of dams. And so when you hear about dam removal, one of the examples we've heard a lot is, oh, well, they removed the Elwha dams and salmon are returning. And first of all, the Elwha dams produced almost no electricity. And second, they had no fish passage. So of course, they were like literally walls in the river that fish couldn't go past. So, that is a very specific kind of dam. It is a low value dam that is, essentially causing environmental damage. And there's no reason to support the maintenance of a dam like that. So, when we look at that, it's important for people to understand that that's one kind of dam, but then you have another kind of dam, which, like we talk about the lower Snake River dams, they produce enough electricity, clean energy to power a city the size of Seattle. They help us integrate other renewable resources, right? And they have world-class fish passage systems. So we really are trying to avoid people conflating those two different kinds of things. And hopefully we can catch enough attention that in people's days that when they're thinking about where their energy comes from, they can kind of make a more sophisticated distinction.
Yeah, I think your efforts to try to positively communicate that distinction is what's going to win the day, because without a positive voice kind of making the case, it's going to get lost. So
right, absolutely. And that's why, that's why Northwest River Partners was formed. It was formed back in 2005. There was a lot of misinformation out there about hydropower in the Northwest. There still is today, but we're blessed to have the opportunity to really focus on that issue. And, with our member support, we're able to, get the message out. We've been successfully able to place 24 different op-eds this year. That's, if I'm not mistaken, 2 a month. And I'll have Arin check that math later. But anyway, really excited about, getting the word out about the value of hydropower to the region. They actually have invested between the 4 lower Snake River dams and the 4 lower Columbia River dams in the neighborhood of $2 billion since the year 2000 on creating some of the most advanced fish passage infrastructure in the world. So really, really great work and a great investment that's been made in our salmonid ecosystem.
And the thesis of what you're trying to do is so key, because you're doubled down on the fact that there's getting your information from Facebook or kind of hearing things here and there in pods and trying to just smash it together. And then the other point is what you bring up on the face of your page, that this is it's a very emotional issue for people. And I think that leaves a huge gap to either manipulate accidentally because you're ignorant on the topic, or, forcefully because money's involved.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point, Arin. I think that one of the things we see from people who are, advocate for removal of dams, and even of a productive dam, is that they tell a really powerful emotional story. It's usually not based on science, because they're, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but for, let's say, the lower Snake River dams, which tend to be the main topic of conversation, there just isn't good science to prove that those dams are the limiting factor for salmon to recover. And as a matter of fact, we're getting a lot of science now that says that that if we don't turn around what's happening in the ocean, no matter how pristine your river environment is, it's not going to do any good. And that's one of the reasons why we try to make we now try to tell the story of hydropower also, not just on science, because I think we have great scientific foundation for it, but we also try to tell the personal story of hydropower, how utilities like Clatskanie PUD use hydropower to make sure that their customers, and especially their disadvantaged customers, have access to clean, affordable hydroelectricity. Most people don't know that we in the Northwest, because of our hydropower system, have the most affordable clean energy in the entire country. We have the least carbon intensive electric grid in the entire nation. That not only has benefits for fighting climate change, but also for the health of communities in terms of the physical health. And even in the era of COVID, a lot of people don't realize that the air quality matters. And if you live around an area with a lot of pollution, you're much more likely to have to be hospitalized with the disease, and you're also much more likely to actually to die from the disease. So living in a place that has clean air, there are real issues and real benefits involved with that. And so we want to tell the whole story of hydropower and help people to understand that. And for that reason, we're really proud of what we do, and we're really grateful to partner with utilities like Clatskanie PUD.
All right, thanks, Kurt. That's the news for the week. If you have news you want us to cover on Public Power Desktop, let us know. Send an email to power@clatskaniepud.com. We're thrilled to have...
Wait, is that a real email address?
I don't know. You can cut it out if you want.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you just fact check your own guy on live? That's good.
I just improvised a little.
That's good.
So we're thrilled to have Kurt with us today, who was willing to hype us up with a stump speech for the Snake River dams. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Today's stump speech is made possible by Northwest River Partners. Are you a reserved, introverted, meandering stream in the Northwest looking for an ally? Come check out Northwest River Partners. Their executive director, Kurt Miller, will respond to your emails, say hi at meetings, and maybe even volunteer to come on to a faux YouTube series when there's nothing in it for him. Deep down, you may realize he's this nice to all the rivers in the Northwest, and maybe you aren't that special, but that doesn't make it any less nice for him to say hi and remember your name. Do you have fish? You know what? Doesn't matter. It's fine either way. Have a dam? Sure. He can keep you safe, maybe even get you a ladder. Stop by Northwest River Partners and find a river partner. Northwest River Partners. It's a partnership of rivers in the Northwest.
Gosh, thank you so much. I'd love to emphasize that message. All rivers are welcome, and we believe that. That's not just a slogan. So let me start off first by saying thank you to Clatskanie PUD for having me here. My only hesitation is that the internet lives forever, but in the case of Lower Snake River Dam, but let's go for it. So anyway, let's go. And first, I'd just like to start with friends, Clatskaniers, countrymen and women. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary to defend the rights of our citizens to have access to clean, renewable, affordable energy, we must recognize that such a fight will not come without its costs. I come to you today as possibly the most verbally abused person in the Northwest energy sector. I have been called a peddler of disinformation, disingenuous, a lobbyist. In one email, someone even called me a slim ball, but I think that's because they couldn't spell.
That's good.
The irony of it all is that I am a clean energy and community advocate. I had grown up in the Pacific Northwest, and I've lived my entire adult life here. I greatly care about our natural environment. I rail against climate change, and I fight for the well-being of disadvantaged communities. I represent not-for-profit, community-owned utilities, and I beat a steady drum calling for science-based policies to help salmon recovery. I'm a longtime bike commuter, for goodness sakes. I ask you, do these sound like the attributes of a slim ball? I say no. I believe it comes down, though, to 4 words, which are lower Snake River dams. And here's the ironic thing. Despite the fact that the lower Snake River dams are affecting just 4 of the Columbia Basin's 13 threatened and endangered salmon species, and despite the fact that new research shows that the Snake River salmon declines have been on par with the rest of the Pacific coast from Central California to Southeast Asia to Southeast Alaska. You can fix that later. And despite the fact that the lower Snake River dams have had roughly $1 billion invested in them so that they now pass juvenile salmon as safely as a free-flowing river. And despite the fact that they produce millions of megawatt hours a year of clean, renewable, reliable electricity. And despite the fact that they are some of BPA's most cost-effective generation resources. And despite the fact that they may be all that lies between us and region-wide blackouts. And despite the fact that they are critical to BPA's ability to balance intermittent renewables like wind and solar. And despite the fact that it would literally cost about $16 billion, yes, Arin, that is billion with a B, over a 20-year period to replace them with another clean energy portfolio, which would place a very unjust burden on our most vulnerable communities. And despite the fact that nobody has offered credible scientific evidence of a cause and effect relationship between salmon survival declines and the operation of those dams, and despite the fact that most scientists agree that warming, acidifying oceans caused by climate change is the biggest threat to salmon survival, and despite the fact that our best chance in the Northwest to reverse that trend is to keep our clean electricity flowing. Where was I? Oh, yes. And despite all these facts, there is a belief by a vocal minority of Northwesterners that the lower Snake River dams must be the cause of the region's salmon problems. As clean energy supporters, however, we know the effects of climate change denial ain't just a river in Egypt. Climate change is responsible for this year's wildfires, this year's intense hurricanes, and some people believe that climate change is even responsible for COVID-19. So why then, when it comes to salmon survival in the ocean, that people suddenly stop believing that climate change is the problem? The most ironic part of this eerie silence about climate change and its effect on salmon is that there's actually quite good scientific research connecting warming oceans to a 50-year decline in salmon survival across the Pacific coast of North America. I would say it defies logic to blame the lower Snake River dams, but this is 2020, and logic went out the door a long time ago. But I ask you, are we deterred?
No.
Are we disheartened?
No.
Oh,
Are we fatalistic?
Absolutely not.
Okay, maybe a little. But I also tell you that I am inspired by you, the people of public power, every day. I see how you care for your communities. I see how you worry about the disadvantaged. I see how you work to improve the natural environment. I see how you create your own weekly news shows on your free time to try to maintain some shred of what remains of your sanity under lockdown. And so I ask you to take confidence in this. We will not allow other groups to tell the story of hydropower. We will not allow anecdotes to replace science. We will not let salmon go extinct without giving our all to fighting the effects of climate change in our oceans and rivers. And we will not allow our vulnerable communities to be unfairly burdened with higher than necessary electricity costs. Brothers and sisters, I ask you to stand with me now. Do not shrink from this moment in history. It cannot be a coincidence that it is here, and you are here, and I am here, which means we are here. Hundreds of thousands of clean electrons are lost in the Northwest each year due to the irrational fear of hydropower. They are spilled on purpose over the tops of dams instead of going through turbines where they could make a difference. These forgotten molecules of electricity are purposely spilled, preventing them from reducing the region's carbon footprint and paving the way for dirty generation to pollute our skies and lungs. I tell you, this needless waste must stop. And I ask, what are you prepared to do? Again, I ask, what are you prepared to do? And I am asking because I don't really have any bright ideas. But when you think of those ideas, I urge you to share them with me. The clean electrons are calling. Are you listening? May God bless America, the people of Clatskanie, Oregon, and the lower Snake River dams. Thank you.
I'm sure you're.
Kurt, I wanted to stand, but I didn't want to look like I was pledging allegiance to the flag. You know, hiding my shame
Absolutely.
here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I wanted to make it as long as possible, and so I feel like I succeeded in that, and that's really that was really for me hitting the mark.
It was beautiful. Every word was beautiful. None of it's getting cut. It's all staying in.
You
I
can
was gonna
cut
say, that can't really be cut.
Feel free to there's a lot of ands. You could cut out 5 of the ands, and I think we'd still be good. So feel free to cut 5 of those sentences just right out of there.
This week, we're scrapping our weekly review of open jobs in the region because Kurt has agreed to get into it in a new segment we like to call Slummin with the Underground, where we ask a series of super personal, very awkward questions. Are you ready, Kurt?
Absolutely, shoot.
Okay, this is the most important question. You cannot decide not to answer this, okay?
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Do you support federal legislation that would allow Oregon and Washington to permanently transition to daylight savings time all the time in order to forever rid ourselves of the scourge of seasonal time change?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I hate that it's dark at 4:30 at night. I hate it. I don't think I feel more passionate about any other public policy topic. I think it's depressing. It's already gloomy enough here in the Northwest, and then to have to contend with, a 4:30 p.m. That looks like midnight. I just think it's not acceptable.
Okay, so if you're an ally in this fight, we have to be very focused on what we're opposed to.
Yeah.
So I've coalesced around it. We're opposed to seasonal time change. I actually don't care. If you want to be on standard time all the time, I'm fine. That's cool. I don't care.
Right.
But a time change screws up my children. It
Right.
screws up my dog. It
Right.
screws up me. Just not do the time change anymore.
Right. Well, and look, as a utility and you're looking at your load data, right? I know that screws things up. Just from an insider utility look, right? Now all of a sudden twice a year, you don't know what to do with this hour, and how do you deal with that? So I just think, from that perspective alone, even if it didn't inconvenience society, it's worth doing.
Mr. Miller, do you drive a Tesla? And if not, how do you virtual signal that you believe in science, math, and the global threat of climate change? Do you, for example, subscribe to an innovative open source charging program like PlugPass? It's just an outlet.
So first of all, I believe that virtue signaling is really important, which is why I mentioned my love for biking on my bio on the webpage. So that's really the way I virtue signal, is I actually put it online. I don't have a Tesla. I think they're really cool. So it's not that I don't aspire to that, but I am kind of waiting for them to fit Clatskanie PUD's plug power design. And right now, because they rely on their own individual charging mechanism. So I'd like something more universal that's more Clatskanie PUD focused.
We're gonna cut this part out.
Do we just need him to say plug pass?
We did.
You
We
can
did.
read
Okay,
it.
I can say plug pass. I
Yeah,
can
thank
do
you,
that.
Thank you. Thank you. Plug Pass is universal. There are those of us at Classic and IPUD that drive Teslas that use the Plug Pass program.
Oh, it works?
It is innovative. It is universal, and it is highly recommended. We're going to get you on board. We're going to get you on board.
Do you promise to send us interesting news articles for us to cover on Public Power Underground in future episodes that aren't about fish? Fish are so boring.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, when we talk about hydropower, a lot of times people just think about fish, right? But we're talking about health. We're talking about clean energy. We're talking about a great opportunity. Speaking of virtue signaling, a great opportunity to virtue signal everyone that your utility provides clean renewable energy to the region. So absolutely, I would jump all over that.
But if you were a fish in the salmonid family,
Mhm.
which type would you be?
If I was a fish in the salmonid family, I would probably go with, Chinook is hard to get better than the king of salmon, right? So I would probably go Chinook. But I would sincerely be worried about what's going on in the ocean. And I would, and I think this is really where you're going with this, is I would make a personal plea for people to use more hydropower, and let's fight that climate change.
The right answer was actually steelhead, but Chinook's a close second.
Oh, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Do you know, just as a trivia, that steelhead are just rainbow trout that go to the ocean?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Even Arin knew that.
I did not know that.
Wow.
That is not a thing, right? You were joking. This was all a joke, right?
Better
No,
get
that's
that.
for real.
100% true.
Yeah.
Then we're going to Google that after this. And this
Yeah,
is all
and
gonna cut.
kokanee are sockeye that don't go to the ocean.
Yep. So I actually, steelhead fishing is my passion. So that's why
Oh, that's why steelhead's
Yeah.
the correct answer. Okay, got it. Are you a catch and release person, or?
I catch and release wild ones and kill every hatchery one I catch.
Got it. That's good. So that's good virtue signaling. Good job.
Who do you follow for Northwest Public Power News?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. There's so many people I admire. So it would be too gratuitous for me to mention you, Paul, on a show that you're hosting. So I won't even mention you. But I certainly love to see what's going on with Scott Sims and his folks at PPC, John Francisco, at NRU. I have great respect for the work of Ashley Slater at PNGC Power. She's really plugged in. Those are just a few names, but yeah, there's a long list.
Do you now, or have you ever created Excel workbooks which use pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, or HLOOKUPs?
VLOOKUP tables. So absolutely, I've never. No, I want to be candid and say that I've never really been good at pivot tables. It just kind of escapes me. But I have actually done a lot of VLOOKUP in my life, and an HLOOKUP is. It sounds kind of different, but it's really the same. So V and H lookup tables, absolutely, I'm all over that.
Okay, so they're similar in that they're both trash and should never be used. And the reason you're not good at pivot tables is because they are wastes of processor power and complete and utter trash. So we gotta, if you're really gonna continue the career that involves Excel workbooks, we need to really push you away from the VLOOKUP.
Well, if you're not doing VLOOKUPs, how big are your internal formulas in your cells?
Yeah, so you really need to focus on index, sum if. Match index is a way more efficient way to then find something in a file, and we do use way too long formulas.
Yes.
Okay.
If they did have VLOOKUPs, they would be massive.
I was going to say you must have some big cells.
It would break my tools if I tried to use VLOOKUP and HLOOKUPs because they're so inefficient.
There'd be no way for anyone to ever decipher what's in your spreadsheet. Is that like a job security ploy that you put together? It's like, well, we can't fire Paul because no one knows what the hell's in that spreadsheet.
It wasn't intentional, I will say
Paul
that,
doesn't,
but it may be in actuality what has happened.
Okay.
What is your go-to mid-afternoon working from home snack of choice?
Oh, I make protein pancakes on the weekend,
Oh,
and I make a huge batch of them, like a double, like 2 boxes.
wow.
You know, and you know, try to put a whole bunch of stuff together. Quick fun fact: you can take out remove the eggs and sugar, and instead use applesauce, and it all still congeals really well. And then I also like to use really ripe bananas, squish them in there, kind of mix it all up. It gives it a really kind of good sweet flavor, but yet you're not having all that refined sugar. So anyway, I make you know, probably like 100 little pancakes, and then I snack on those in the morning and afternoon.
Wow.
That
That
sounds way
is
too healthy.
awesome.
That's some serious.
Like
I
Snickers,
they really
Snickers, Reese's. You could have went with something like that. No, not Kurt. He's a biker in Portland, Vancouver. Sorry.
Where do you go to look for public power jobs in the region?
Oh gosh, you know, so I am all over LinkedIn. I mean, I am, you know, like I have like all these people who I don't even know, and I just go and like invite them so that I can have a big number of LinkedIn. Do they say followers? What do they say on the LinkedIn? Well, anyway, I have a lot of connections, and so there's a lot of good public power job or other job information on there if you're interested. And you know, the key is just not to be picky about who you connect with. It's just kind of like life.
I feel a lot less special now.
Oh, Brian Fawcett. Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, that's how I met him. Yeah, I've met Brian before.
So last one. This is guest choice. Could you show us a book from your bookshelf that you think we should read, or you can show us your desktop?
That
Oh.
feels deeply personal.
so I no,
It is
that's not an
personal.
issue at all. I'm actually at work, like real work, not fake work.
I just want to say that we really need to cut off this narrative that working from home isn't real work. Working from home is harder than working from a
No, it
job.
is. I completely agree. That's why I'm working
It's
from the
like
office.
so many distractions.
I mean,
Yeah, like it's
You
real
know,
work.
the truth is that not leaving the house is depressing. Even if you like love the people in your house, it's just hard to be kind of, you know, locked up all day. So I actually feel very blessed that I'm able to kind of go into, we have a, you know, small office here, but I feel real blessed to be able to come in here and just kind of get a change of scenery.
You know, we're going to be really judgmental, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
It is our skill set.
There it is.
Oh,
Oh,
Can't judge that.
no, right? So, so these are two of our Boston Terriers. So Wags unfortunately passed a couple years ago. He was 13 years old. Awesome, awesome dog. So great. And then this is Dash, who is now 5.5, and he's really great as well. Great in a different way. You know, I don't like to pick favorites. Wags is definitely my favorite, but Dash is great too.
So the commentary I have, awesome dogs. I'm relieved to see that you don't have 400 files on your desktop.
Oh yeah, no, I can't have a cluttered desktop. I can't do it.
now deep down inside, Brian is not telling you that he's extremely judgmental that you have a Windows device, not a Mac.
Oh yeah,
He's just holding
Your
it in.
icons are out of alignment, but
yeah, that's a problem. I get that. I actually, I'm an Apple environment person though at home. I'm iPhone and also iPad Pro. So definitely, and I think that the Apple Pencil is one of the greatest things that was ever made. As you can tell, I wasn't expecting to have company today, so I had no idea that we'd be looking at my desktop.
It was deeply personal.
Yeah,
we finally got there.
yeah, we got there. Yeah, you got some tears. I don't know if the camera picked it up, but there were some tears.
All right, we'll wrap this up. Thanks for joining us today, Kurt. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I had a blast. As a matter of fact, if I could just have like a recurring guest spot on this, I think it would be awesome. So I'm just saying, just think about it. It's not a requirement. I think it would be a great way for us to get to know each other better than just beyond LinkedIn. But anyway, it's just a thought. The other thing is, I'd say, please feel free to delete or edit out any of the things I've said during this entire time, especially some of the hot takes. No hurt feelings here.
Public Power Underground is off next week because there's no way Paul is going to force us to have a department meeting on Thanksgiving. We'll be back to go through the news on December 2nd. Send us any news, jobs, or opinions you'd like us to share with our 1 subscriber and 2 faithful viewers. I think those are all out of Paul's household, actually.
Me?
Oh.
you don't watch it.
Fawcett doesn't watch this.
If you found the episode, you certainly know how to find us. At this point, you know it's true. Public Power Underground, it's work to watch.
Today's episode is brought to you by PlugPass, a subscription-based public charging program for electric vehicles. Like PlugPass will make way more sense once we return to our normal work schedule and office space. If we ever return to normal work schedules and office space again, which we might not, in which case we have way more to worry about than if installing an outlet in your parking lot was a bad idea or not. My suspicion is it's such a low-cost option that it'll make sense anyway. Until then, just take our word for it. You want your own outlet at work to recharge your electric vehicle every day. If you want to learn more, check out PlugPass on GitHub. PlugPass, it's open source. PlugPass, it's just an outlet. We're out.